I'm taking a huge risk, guys. I've spent years of my life and millions of dollars working on this film, but now I'm worried people won't see it. A musical based on Deliverance seemed like a sure thing at the time. But luckily I stayed up every night for a week developing an ingenious marketing plan. I bought a bunch of carrier pigeons and are gonna send them out with this message. Oh yeah, we're bringing back a classic. Damn it. That's not even gonna cover the cost of all that farmland those pigeons destroyed. Maybe I should have released them over a major city and not a small rural farming town. I wanted to do something good for the little guy.
Marketing. Who doesn't love being ordered what to consume? Since the beginning of cinema, there's always been a need for ad campaigns to get people to watch a movie. Like, I can only imagine what the Arrival of a Trains campaign must have been like. All movies are in competition with each other, even ones made by the same studio, so it's important to have some sort of ad campaign to get the word out. Every movie has a trailer, and yes, sometimes those alone get people talking. I'm reminded of when apparently ticket sales for Meet Joe Black skyrocketed for a weekend from people buying tickets just to see the Phantom Menace trailer and then leaving. But with that example, you're dealing with an extremely popular franchise to begin with. Plus all that other marketing stuff they concocted. I'm sure that Jar Jar Lollipop beefed up ticket sales a bit. Marketing is pretty much just as important to the process as making the actual movie. You just spent a good chunk of change on the film itself, so you want some assurance you'll make it back. As I mentioned before on the channel, you typically have to make double or oftentimes triple your budget for your film to be considered profitable. This is why you see so many instances of movies where, despite making its initial budget back, they are still seen as failures because they couldn't cover marketing costs. There are plenty of examples where something can become profitable after the fact also. The Northman just barely missed the mark on even making its production budget back, but it was still considered profitable due to streaming revenue, physical sales, and all that stuff. But for studios, the golden goose is typically box office stats, which is why you gotta get the word out one way or another. Now, I've talked about examples of good marketing before and how it can vastly improve a movie's success, but how about examples of bad marketing and how much it can harm a movie's chances? But what exactly constitutes as bad marketing? I'm talking about a marketing gimmick that maybe didn't reach the right crowd or no crowd at all, or maybe not even a gimmick. What about the initial trailer itself hurting the film? And there's no better example of this, I feel, than Babylon. This was Damien Chazelle's fourth studio film, with it easily being his toughest sell, and in turn toughest to make a trailer for in my opinion. Here, take for example, Whiplash. Music student gets pushed to his absolute limits by a tyrannical professor. La La Land, a contemporary musical about making it in show business. First Man, a film chronicling the career and personal life of Neil Armstrong. And Babylon, a broad overarching story about the rapidly changing landscape of 1920s Hollywood and how it affects a small group of main characters. You see what I mean? The first three are more or less cohesive sells to the audience who would understand what they're getting into. But Babylon, you'd have to be a little more creative in presenting it to the audience. Which is why in response, they put out the vaguest possible trailer imaginable. Like, I'll go on record in saying this is one of the worst trailers I've ever seen. Not that it's poorly made, not that it's unwatchable on its own, but it never really gives you a hint at what the movie is actually about. Like, if you watch it, you get the impression that the film is basically just about partying in 1920s Hollywood. And yes, there are a bunch of party scenes, but it doesn't even try hinting at the actual conflict of the film. Nothing about the introduction of sound affecting the main characters' careers or how public taste changed too quickly. Nothing. Just lots of party scenes with a few shots of old Hollywood stuff happening. To the average moviegoer, it looked as if this film had no story. I've heard the argument before that this film was a difficult sell from the get-go because regular audiences wouldn't be interested in the subject matter of 20s filmmaking, but honestly, I don't buy that. You can make pretty much anything into a bankable film if you know what you're doing. That logic can easily be applied to The Wolf of Wall Street is a difficult sell because who would want to see a movie about stock trading? But the difference is the trailer for The Wolf of Wall Street actually laid out what the story is about instead of not at all. Also, from an advertising standpoint, it doesn't utilize the star power of the film in any real way. They don't show you much about Jack Conrad, who is an incredibly interesting character by the end. Nothing about Nellie Leroy outside of she just likes partying. They mention Damien Chazelle's name a couple of times, but outside of general film enthusiasts, the average person probably doesn't know who he is. Damien, homeboy, I love you, but you aren't a household name. There are very few directors who are. I'm baffled how this has no mention of him being the guy behind Whiplash and La La Land, two extremely beloved films. Also, there's only like 2 shots of Toby in the trailer, and they're both blink and you miss it types. Yeah, I know he isn't in the movie much, but he's got enough of a fandom to where I'm sure there's enough people who'd want to see the movie only cause he's in it. But beyond just that trailer, Paramount didn't do much else to push the film. Tack on its mixed critical reception, and you have a $64 million box office take against a $110 million budget. I remember seeing this film opening night and only like 5 other people were in the theater. There was like this little intro video thing before where Margot Robbie said, "Thank you for seeing Babylon and the way it was meant to be seen," in a packed movie theater, to where after a couple seconds of silence, I yell, "Woo!" I love the film all the same, and yeah, while I think it's its weakest one narratively, this is still absolutely something the general public would like. I firmly believe that anyone who enjoyed The Wolf of Wall Street would have absolutely eaten this up if they actually knew it existed. I will never forgive Paramount for letting this bomb. It deserved better. I just cannot fathom investing over $100 million into something but not taking any steps in assuring your investment.
I guess Paramount blew all their ad budget that year on Top Gun Maverick. Firebombing all those suburban towns seemed like overkill, but that's just me.
A bad trailer is an inherent kiss of death because that's your first impression with the movie, especially if it's an original film. The more familiar a franchise is, the less risky a trailer would be. I like that Superman trailer, for example, but it gives you hardly any hints as to what the story is actually going to be about and is more interested in showing you familiar images. But of course with the added context of, it won't be boring and bad this time, guys. If it's an original idea or a property which isn't well known, there's a lot more weight on getting its initial teaser right, especially making sure you're giving the audience a clear comprehension of what the story is. Like in the case of Babylon, they didn't give a good enough understanding of what it's actually about. But what about when a trailer, intentionally or not, outright misleads people? I can think of no better example than Kangaroo Jack. We all have that one really early childhood movie that was on basically every day. Well, this monstrosity was that for me. And don't get me wrong, as a mindless 5-year-old this was peak, but if you were like a little older and saw the trailer for this, you'd think it'd be some wacky adventure starring a talking kangaroo. But in the actual film, that happens for like 5 minutes during a dream sequence.
You can talk. And I can sing. I said a hip hop, the hippie to the hip hop.
The rest of the film is a generic comedy with the mob in it. The movie did okay box office wise, but was probably a disappointment against its budget. But aside from that one scene, I don't know how you'd market this to people. It really feels like the scene only exists so they could stick it in a trailer to actually give it a selling point. Hey kids, you want to see a fun movie about a talking kangaroo? Well, here's The Departed for children, except boring. There's plenty of examples of movies whose premises are so difficult to convey in a trailer that I'd be floored trying to put one together myself. Like, how the hell would you make a trailer for that movie Queer, for example? How? But Kangaroo Jack I don't think falls into that category completely. I think it's more like they were 40% through development of the film where someone realized, hey, this movie is kind of boring and, like, stupid. So the execs ordered this scene to be put in. This, however, kind of blurs the line between bad marketing and bad PR, and while yes, they often coexist, PR usually follows the marketing. Because something like Tony Kaye aggressively lambasting American History X before its release definitely hurt it, but that's more an example of bad publicity than marketing.
Edward Norton, the actor, was permitted by the producers to edit and alter the film!
Antagonizing the hell out of the studio and then wondering why your career nosedives. God bless you, Tony. How about a movie that people care so little about that a campaign fails in its task of even getting audiences on board? I can think of no better example of this than Elemental. Elemental is a boring movie that's so surface level in its messaging, it'd make Neil Breen blush. See, it's a forbidden love story, but instead of race, it's elements. Fucking elements. I don't know why, but there wasn't really much of an ad push for this movie at the time. Was there really no interest they could drum up? Like, it's so transparent in its messaging, there was nothing under the hood to unveil in the actual movie? Well, aside from your usual spin of ads and trailers, the only thing they thought to market was this one character, Claude. Yes, the totally not grating, likable, charming character that everyone loved and who I hoped would die. They tried to appeal to younger demos by using him in insane levels of howdy do fellow kids. I still get secondhand embarrassment thinking about it. They made all these TikToks acting like he's this wholesome dibby that everyone would soy over. Did they think they were fooling anyone with this? I can only imagine the faces of all those poor interns being shuffled into a theater to laugh and clap at this shit. Years of ladder climbing has led me to fake applauding a cartoon character to trick people into thinking this terrible movie is good. Living the dream. Disney and Pixar have been on this baffling kick the last few years where they don't market their movies in any meaningful way, and as a result they bomb. I can't tell you the amount of people who hadn't even heard of Strange World after it came out, let alone actually saw it. And most of their films as of late, outside of like Inside Out 2, have lost money, so I don't get the thought process. Or as I mentioned, is this just an uninteresting idea for a movie and there was no way to market it? The film eventually made a solid enough return since it did well outside the US, especially in Asia, but beyond that, making no real cultural impact. And the only explanation is that it's simply just not that good of a movie. Not that an ad campaign can necessarily save a bad film, but speaking purely from a financial standpoint, it's the best you can do to recoup costs. I could go on and on with other examples. I didn't even talk about all that Lorax shit. I don't think it affected its numbers much, but Jesus, guys. At the end of it all, as much as it sucks to say, movies are basically a business. It's a symbiotic relationship where the filmmaker gets to make their film, and in return the studios make lots of dough. Yes, I would prefer it if it wasn't as strictly money-focused as it is, but that's just how the game is played. And in order for a film to do well, you have to make sure it's something the public is actually interested in seeing. And as I've mentioned, you can make anything into an interesting movie. And trust me, there's a niche for just about everything. You want to make a 3-hour film of a woman cleaning her apartment? Yeah, that market's been cornered.
Marketing is just part of the process, and in order for your movie to do well, you have to get clever with it. Gone are the days of just putting a few ads on TV and radio here and there. Now it's what tactic can dominate TikTok while it's still legal. Everyone has their favorite memory of being swept up in the excitement of a film, and marketing plays a vital role in that. So if you want your film to not only do well, but dominate the cultural discussion, you have to actually put in the effort instead of not. I don't know, it's times like this I wonder what Tony K would say.
Eat fucking shit. Go and get another fucking job, you stupid fucking bitch whore, useless crap motherfucker.
Now, is he onto something with that? I'm too afraid to ask.
I said a hip hop, the hippie to the hip hop, you don't stop the rock to the bang bang, boogie sit up, jump the boogie to the rhythm.